Yeah. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the personnel meeting. It's September the 14th, 2023. For the sake of clarity, I'd like it if we could, first of all, go around the table and announce who we are and in what capacity, so it's clear on the recording. I'm John Evans, Councillor for Ulverston Ward and Chair of the Personnel Committee.
Paul McMahon, Legal Advisor.
Sue Bonser, Councillor for Abbey and Vice Chair of Committee.
Paul Frasnoaz, Councillor for Region Board.
Saki Bami, Councillor for Blakery's Board.
Jonathan Smale, Councillor for Spondon Ward.
Preston Holmes, Councillor for the Council Ward. Adele Ashmore, Strategic HR Manager.
Becky Hilton Barwell, HR Advisor.
Tanya Hay, Organisational Development Manager.
Matthew Eyre, Councillor for Oakwood Ward. Dominic Monaghan, Democratic Services.
Thank you all. Thank you. Welcome. First item, do we have any apologies?
We have apologies for Liz Moore and Councillor Khan. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3, any declarations of interest? No, I'll take that as none. Item 4, the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of June 23. I'll go through the pages quickly in case anybody's got comments to make. And if they do, just speak up, please. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Yeah, comments. Can I have a proposer for those minutes and a second? Thank you, Matthew. Councillor Ayres. Which do you prefer?
Whichever you want to go for.
Okay, we'll take those minutes as read. Thank you. Okay, there's item 5, colleague health and wellbeing update and Q1 attendance management performance. And I believe that is
Me, it's Adele.
Oh, it's Adele. Excuse me, Adele. That's
No, that's fine. So I'm here today to provide you with a standard update on the colleague health and wellbeing and the Q1 attendance management performance. So you'll see as part of the recommendations, we're asking the committee to note the colleague health and wellbeing offer, which we set out as part of the report, to note that from the 1st of June, as part of this quarter, we have moved forward as a service to employees and colleagues reporting directly to their manager in terms of reporting their sickness absence, and to also note at 2.3 the performance for attendance management as being as Q1 of 2.78 FTE days lost and a current year end forecast of 11.11 FTE days lost for 23-24, and that's against a target of 10.5 FTE days. So if we move on to the first section of the report at 4.2, you'll see the occupational health and wellbeing coach. Unfortunately, Carl Ward couldn't be here today with us to present this part of the report. But you'll see as part of the information, again, the occupational health service are above the local benchmarks, employment offered within 21 days, that the preferring manager receives the full occupational health report within 24 hours of the appointment, and that we moved from a nurse-led appointment service in 2022 to both improve on the quality of advice and reports written, and also because we have now qualified occupational health physicians which carry out that full remit of occupational health service. You'll see that Carl's provided a little bit of data for you on the excellent employee assistance programme that we have in place, which is externally hosted, that colleagues can access information and advice on a range of health and financial matters 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our usage is at 4.5%, which is above an industry average of 1.7%, and a total of 13 new counselling cases were opened in June and 14 in July. Figures are from the 1st of June to the 31st of July, but to note that People Services Directorate remains the highest user of the counselling service at 72% of all sessions during this period. So the average take-up remains at seven counselling sessions each person, and the most popular format for the session has been telephone consultations. The top 3 reasons for counselling sessions across all council directorates were anxiety, women's health and work-related conflict. Personal issues accounted for 64% of access, work-related issues were accounted for 36% of access, which is an increase on the last report. Whilst the data review access as counselling is never disclosed to the council, headline figures of levels of take-up are shared at a directorate level. So as the service continues to focus on relevant actions to reduce the absence level, an analysis of average working days lost due to sickness absence is currently being carried out. This may relate to the increase in counselling sessions. So as we continue with further work on absence analysis, which is underway, with a working group established to bring together good practice and actions to support the reduction of absence, whilst also reviewing people services action plans. We're at 4.3, we go on to the absence reporting impacts. So from the 1st of June, as stated in the recommendation, colleagues now ring their manager if they are unwell, rather than ringing externally those to absence reporting line. We did anticipate, if you recall, at the last personnel committee, that this would have a positive impact on the number of absence colleagues across the council from an early engagement approach, and we feel that that has started to come to fruition. Even though it's an early forecast at this point in time to look at this long term, but we hope that the ongoing positive decrease in the number of days lost in each quarter will continue to be shown. As the data for quarter one is encouraging, that early intervention at the early stage of absence will continue. So from 4.4, in terms of the management attendance performance for 23-24 so far, it's quarter one is 2.78 FTE days lost, which shows a positive decrease against the quarter four that we saw for 22-23 period of 3 FTE days lost. So what we're looking at now is, in terms of the quarter one result, gives us a year-end forecast of 11.11 FTE days, which would be 0.61 days higher than the year-end target of 10.5, but positively lower than the 22-23 13.34 FTE days lost, which we saw at the end of 22-23. So the data has had to be split this time for you in terms of the personnel committee, due to the fact that from the 1st of May we had a senior leadership restructure. So there are a number of sections moved around within the council. So you can see there from April 2023, we show the breakdown of corporate resources, people services and communities in place. And then you can see for May and June, we have the breakdown there for chief executives, people services and place. The top 3 absence reasons for quarter one are remain the same as stress anxiety with 21.05% of all absences, musculoskeletal at 17.24% of absence, and operations, post-operative recovery and other hospital appointments at 6.87% of all absence across the council. So our future focus at 4.5 of the report is around the exploring actions still, and really try and keep that positive focus on bringing attendance down. We're going to keep on that prevention focus of wellbeing approach, which supports our vision of ensuring that health and wellbeing is embedded in everything that we do. And we'll be exploring a number of actions there, that's bullet points, which is the potential to develop our existing mental health champion network into an overarching wellbeing champion network, to improve the understanding of occupational health and wellbeing and developing the culture of wellbeing amongst staff, to provide appropriate guidance based on national campaigns and relevant research in line with our NHS partners, to provide the support and tools needed for colleagues to make healthy choices, so that our colleagues can continue to take responsibility for their own improvement in their own health, wellbeing, and to develop a wellbeing activity calendar, which is well underway at this moment in time. So in addition to the services, we'll continue to focus on these relevant actions to reduce the absence levels and continue to provide you with an analysis of the working days lost due to sickness absence. So just like the personnel committee, to note the recommendations 2.1, 2.3, 2.4 as part of this report. Sorry, that's flown through quite quickly.
Stop. Councillors, please feel free if you want to speak or have any comments to on that section, please.
A quick one on the change of absence reporting. It says, were there any challenges or issues relating to transition of this system, or has it been generally well received?
Well, it's been quite well received because we also put in a number of additional measures as part of the process moving forward, which makes it easier for managers in terms of moving somebody through the attendance process, a number of e-forms, rather than managers having to construct their own letters following meetings with staff. So the e-form takes somebody through the whole process. We've been running reports through our HR data management section to make sure that people are still carrying out return to work interviews, that absences is being recorded effectively within the areas, and we've been exploring where there has been a shift in the data, in particularly in place, for example, where you'll see it.
Councillor Holmes.
The EAP, where it says their usage is at 4.5%. Can you give me kind of figures on that in terms of people, bodies, rather than a percentage? What kind of?
What we could do is, because this doesn't fall within my field, we can ask Carl Ward to report any data he has on actual head count, if you're looking at numbers of people rather than a percentage, and include that within the next report, if that's going to be helpful moving forward.
Yeah, if that's possible. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, on that, I'm not confused, but for clarification, at the industry average 1.7% against the 4.5%. I'm assuming that that's 4.5% and 1.7% of the workforce that's off sick. Yeah, not the total
assumption, but I can get Carl to clarify that as well.
Yeah, it'll be it's likely to be that, isn't it? Probably a bit of clarification. Thank you. Any other comments? Anybody, councillors?
Just one for me, just clarity of language. Obviously, you say chief executives, people services in place. When we say chief executives, are we including strategic directors?
Yes, that's right. Well, each one, well, they'd be part of, for example, the strategic director for place would be included in the one in the directorate for place. So if they were absent, their absence would come under their own directorate.
So the chief executives
is corporate management chief executives department now. We're called chief executives.
Yeah, going back to that one where it's got the May, June 23, I'd like to comment as you can notice that there's a significant difference in the full-time equivalent days lost between the chief executives, given a year-end one of 6.1 days against people services 10.57, places 14.54. So I suppose it identifies the areas where we've got to work.
It does,
to try and are we doing anything? I suppose we are to work towards that.
We've currently done a deep dive into place because that has been a significant shift, just to check out and make sure that it wasn't from the 1st of June that everybody suddenly started ringing in an absence based on the shift in terms of process. So and it was one particular work area which was hit particularly, so we are doing some deep dive work and continuing as part of that absence project group to work with place to address some of the issues that they're having.
Sure, it could be skewed by a particular work area.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you, Ada.
Would those numbers also be skewed by the fact it's weighted with how many people in that department? For example, place, we know that's a larger area of workforce, and for example, when it comes to the yeah, that's it. Injuries, let's say. From like waste services, for example, where we know the risk of back injuries, hand injuries is quite high. So and I want to take a shot at people services. Obviously, I know that's also high, but obviously that includes our social care staff, which we know that their demands pressures are quite high, and obviously that does take its toll.
It does show the differential in the workforce in terms of chief executives having more of an internally focused back office style workplace compared to the externally focused services. We do see a difference there in terms of absence out turn.
Any other comments? Councillor Bonser.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we did talk about that deep dive into, you know, what's happening in people's services. Is it, you know, is that where the stress and anxiety is? That would be my sort of gut feeling. And the MSK, easy way of getting around it, is perhaps in communities and place. When are we likely to get some figures back on that?
Well, that's something that we're taking forward as part of that project group. And because this is quarter 1 data, we can now analyse the quarter 1 in terms of moving forward. So we can give you more detail on that in the next report. Thank you.
Any more comments, councillors? Thank you, Adele. We'll move on to the next item. Yes, 2 point. You jumping the gun. I'll go back. We've got the recommendations at 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3 on item 5. It's page 1 of item 5. Are we all in agreement with those recommendations? Yeah, we are. Thank you. Now we'll move on. Thank you, Adele. So let's go to item 6. The apprenticeship programme. I believe Tanya is going to present this.
Yeah,
Thank you, Tanya.
Good morning. The purpose of my paper today is to provide information on the Local Government Association apprenticeship survey findings that's been carried out earlier this year, and also to provide an update on the Council's levy spend and our drawdown as of the 1st of September 2013. And the recommendations are to note the information from the Local Government Association survey, and also to note the payments data and the drawdown as of the 1st of September. So the supporting information. So to give you some context, the LGA carry out a survey every year on the apprenticeships, the apprenticeship programme nationally. And this is, the survey usually covers new starts, levy spend, transfer, and also the way that organisations structure their programmes. So, and this year, slightly different. They, LGA decided to give out individual reports that illustrate how we compare nationally, regionally, and by council type. So, and it gives an indicative assessment of where we are against the LGA's maturity model, apprenticeship maturity model as well within the report. Just to note, the reports are only shared with the council concerned. So we are the only people who have received this data to this level of detail. So this, as I say, this report really, I wanted to focus on the survey because it's a very comprehensive survey and there's a lot of findings within it. So that's why I've predominantly discussed this within the report. So just again, to give you some context around apprenticeship starts. So an apprenticeship start is anybody who starts on an apprenticeship programme. So that could be a new start apprentice to the organisation, or it could be an existing member of staff that undertakes some workforce, some personal development. So just to give you the context there, and also to give you some context around the public sector body target. So any public sector body of with more than 250 staff in England had a target of having an average of at least 2.3% of their staff as a new apprentice over the period from 1st of April 2017 to the 31st of March 2022. And this was a requirement we had, and we had to report on this annually. So that just gives you a little bit of context of what the target was. And the target has now been withdrawn after the 31st of March 22, but public sectors are still asked to report and gather the data on new starts, number of apprentices and organisational headcount, but now it isn't an actual target the government have imposed. So that just gives you a little bit of context of what new starts and the public sector target is. So moving on to the first section and Appendix 1. So the survey includes charts which give us an annual overview of apprenticeship starts between 2017 and annually and 2022. So this indicates our accumulative number of apprenticeship starts created over that period, performance against the target over that period as well. So, and as you can see on Appendix 1, page 1 gives our performance, page 2 gives the East Midlands performance, and page 3 gives all unitary councils within England's performance. So, and so you can by looking at those 3 appendices, you can see how we have performed regionally and by council type. So, and what the LGA have done is they've decided to mark that performance in quartiles. So there are the different quartiles. So the top quartile represents the top 25% of councils. The middle quartile is from 50% to 75%. Middle quartile is from 25% to 50%. And the bottom quartile is the bottom 25% of councils. So that's how the quartiles work. And I put the tables in there to show you how we ranked nationally, regionally, and by council type, broken down annually over those years, which correlates with the bar charts, the data that are given in Appendix 1. So to summarise those tables, what we need to do is we need to look at not only our new starts, but also how we performed against the public sector target, because as you can imagine, it's proportionate. So to get that true picture, your larger council tends to have more apprentices, but that doesn't mean that they have a higher head, they're not performing as well at the public sector target and hitting the 2.3%. So, you know, more people, more apprenticeships. So you need to look at both figures together to see how well we have performed against that. And as you can see, looking at those tables, over the 5-year period, the majority of the time we have ranked in the upper middle quartile of the councils. And we have ranked in the top quartile on 4 occasions, and this is both against the start and the performance. So as you can see, we have ranked quite high up regionally and by council type. So that explains the appendices and the data there. So then moving on to our levy spend, which is referenced in Appendix 2. So again, on Appendix 2, the pie charts, they illustrate total spend, unspent funds, expired funds, and transferred funds. So just to give you a little context around the transferring of funds, 2018 started what we were calling transferring of our levy funds. This was where the government enabled us to transfer some of our unspent funds to local employers, SMEs, local employers. So, and what we've been doing is using that, and we have, as of the survey, we had created 27 apprenticeships with external employers, which equated to 8% of our total levy spend. Going back slightly, as you can see, looking at those bar charts, we have spent 52% of our levy, which is the highest of the spends across all the types of councils we were measured against. So that is, you know, nationally, regionally, and by all unitary councils. We also have the lowest of expired funds, 15%. We also have 25% of unspent funds, which is the second lowest as well. So, and as I say, 8% of our fund we transferred, which again is the second highest there. So looking at those bar charts and plotting our performance against other councils, again, we are performing very well with our levy spend. So that's those two. And then moving on to our maturity model, the apprenticeship maturity model. This is a model, a framework that was created in 2017 by the LGA and covers nationally all public sector bodies. And it has actually been one of the most popular tools that the LGA have put in place. And it's really a good tool to enable us to benchmark ourselves where we are with our maturity, but also how we perform again against other councils nationally, regionally, and by council type. So I have put a copy of the maturity model in there, which gives you an in-depth explanation of what it means and where we need to be to hit the different areas like the early, developing, maturing, and mature and sustainable. So I just gave you that again for some context. So a bit of bedtime reading for you there. So the 6 pillars that we are measured on is leadership, culture and engagement, procurement and provider management, workforce development, implementation, the apprentice experience and our maintained schools. So those are the pillars that we are measured with. And as you can see on Appendix 4, it gives you a little bit of an explanation around the context of where we are within the assessment model, what it means to be in the early stages, what it means to be in the developing stages, and so on. So I put that in to give you a little bit of context there, again, when you're looking at the maturity model. So moving on to where we are on the model. So that is part of the Appendix 5. So to give you a rundown of where we are on each pillar. So the leadership, culture and engagement pillar, our rating is C+. And as you can see, this, as I put in the report, nationally, regionally and by council type, we are again performing the best of within that range. And it is within the maturing element of the model. With our procurement and our provider management, we're B+, which shows that we are performing higher than the other councils that we've been our comparators. And again, we are in the mature rating there. Workforce development, we're C-, which again is in line with the national and council type, and is higher than the regional median, and again placing us in the maturing rating. Implementation is D-. As you can see, we're not performing quite as well with our implementation, and I think this is giving us some indicators of where we need to focus some of our efforts. And it's around our spending plan and around how we measure our impact of our spend within the organisation. So those are 2 key areas that have been pulled out of the report that I want to spend some time looking into. The apprenticeship experience, we've fared very well, which again, I was really pleased about actually, because it goes to show that our apprentices within the organisation are having a good experience while they're undertaking our programmes. We're D-, and again, we've outperformed our comparators there, and we are in the mature rating. Maintained schools, not faring as well as with the other areas, but we are we are comparing with the national, regional and council type figures. And again, I think that demonstrates that we still need work within the schools to support them. But I think, as I say, that's reflected nationally and by council type as well, that it is something that we all need to focus our efforts on. So looking at the findings of the survey, I know that it's quite complex, some of it's quite complex data, but I did want to give you a good overview of where we are, because I think it gives us a good indicator of where we are performing against our peers and where we need to focus our efforts moving forward. So I just wanted to give you that explanation around that. And I think in summary of the full report, the findings that I find from this, I think it's very positive. It's a really good report. I think it highlights how well we are performing and the hard work that we have put in to perform. I mean, we all know, you know, it goes without saying really, the impact of COVID in the middle of it, and you will see the dip in figures there on the annual figures around that, and how we have now recovered from that and how we want to carry that good work moving forward. And I think it really gives us, it's been very pleasing to get the outcome as a team, to see how well that we are performing against our peers, and the work that we are doing is having an impact. So we were really pleased with the results of this survey. So that's why I really wanted to focus so much on this report, really. So that's the part around the report. Just to give you the normal update on our levy payments. So as it states in the report, from April 2017 to September 23, we have transferred 4.6 million into our digital levy account. We've drawn down 2.5 mil from the account, and that is for internal training. So that's what we spent internally. We transferred 177,000 to our local employers. And as I say, this report was put together in January. Since January, I can tell you that we have now worked with a further 13 employers, and we have access. So we are continuing our efforts, and we're working very closely with the economic development team around how we further spend that transfer. As it states, we have had 660,000 of our funds expired and returned back to the government. So, and again, and we have 1.4 million in the fund as we speak that we are utilising. Just as a side, I wanted to add that's not in the report. At the moment, we are processing a further 35 apprenticeships internally that we are hoping to have started between now and the end of the year as well. So that will support with our spend as well. So I just wanted to add that in. That was hot off the press. I was speaking to my apprenticeship engagement officer yesterday morning. So I just wanted to add that little bit in as well. So thank you for giving me the opportunity this morning to explain this report to you. And I welcome any questions.
To the councillors, any questions, councillors? Councillor Bonds.
I'd just like to say, yeah, thank you for your report and well done to the team, and please pass that on. In terms of the 35 new starters, are they new starters or are they internal?
There's a mixture at the moment. We are going off the top of my head, I want to say about 6 new starters. And that's across internally and with the schools. Now the schools are back in again. We're working with schools, predominantly teaching assistants. But yes, so we've got some schools who are now approaching us as well. So yeah, about 6 new starts.
Yeah, thank you.
Questions, councillors? Well, I've got a couple of comments. Going back to the Derby City Council apprenticeship starts,
yes.
Where we've got the national, the regional and the council type. Even where we are in the bottom quartile, it's only in the regional ones, which means that's comparing us against, I don't know, Leicester, Nottingham, I take, in those areas. So, okay, locally we may have been beat by them, regionally should I say, but nationally we're doing well. It really is good. And I'm very pleased about it. And as usual, my gripe is the 15%, which equates to the 660,000, is it, that's not been spent. So think about that. That's over £500,000 that we could have spent on apprenticeships. And I know it's lower than the national, but it's still, that money could have gone. We could have had more people on training. So to me, the focus should be to get that percentage into single figures.
I am trying my hardest. I'm trying my hardest. I must admit, when I put the reports together and I have to put that figure in, it does pull on my heartstrings.
Yes.
Because we do, you know, we are reaching out as much as we can internally and also externally to maximise the spend. But yes, we would rather spend it ourselves than give it back nationally. But on the, if there's any positive around that, is it does go back into the levy pot and it does get spent on apprenticeships nationally. And I know that's not what we want to hear, but it does go back to support the National Apprenticeship Programme, if there's any positive to be taken from it.
Thank you, Tanya, and all the team.
Thank you.
Can I just ask the councillors then, so we agree with the recommendations of item 6, 2.1, 2.2? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Right, we'll move on to item 7, market rate supplement policy update, central policy. And this is Rebecca. Take the floor, Rebecca, thank you.
Yeah, so myself and colleagues have recently updated the central market rates. We've obviously moved back in 2017, so we want to bring it up to date to make sure it reflects how the council consider and award market rate supplements. So we are seeking approval for the market rate supplement policy today. Talk you through the main changes to the policy. It's worth noting before we start that it hasn't significantly changed. Its purpose is still the same. We're going to retain staff in post skill shortages, for example. Draw your attention to the supporting information there. A market rate supplement should only be used in exceptional circumstances, so where there are other non-pay related issues where they've been fully explored and resolved, and where the service is able to demonstrate that pay and market forces are the reasons for those recruitment and retention difficulties. We needed to be clearer in the policy that it needs to be both payment and retention issues for it to be justified and defensible. We've also tidied up the policy and guidance so that they're clear on the review period for market rate supplements. Guidance and the policy were at odds in place as previous. So to reflect the practice, the review period is a maximum of 24 months, with a review starting at the 18th month point. So that review and approval is all achieved within that 24-month period. It's worth noting that this isn't necessarily limited to the one review in 24 months. If, when taken to CLT, there are reasons that might suggest the market might change within that 24 months, CLT might recommend it being reviewed within 12 months. And then finally, in terms of providing clarity, we have sought to be clearer on the terms of how a market rate supplement will be applied. So this hasn't changed, but we have made it more explicit. The key points here to note are that where basic salary increases for reasons such as incremental progression or pay awards, then the market rate supplement value will automatically be adjusted so that we're not exceeding the total value as approved by CLT for that market rate supplement. As I say, that's not changed, but we just made it more. And then finally, paragraph 4.6 of the supporting information is with respect to the notice period. So this is where the market rate supplement has been subject to a review, and the evidence now strongly suggests that it needs to either be reduced or removed entirely, and 1 month's notice will be given in this circumstance. The reasons for this is so that we don't extend the period for paying a market rate supplement once we have evidence that suggests it's no longer objectively justified, and also to support the council's objectives to provide services as efficiently as possible. Those are the key changes. Are any questions on council?
Councillor Bonser.
Yeah, I'd just be interested to know how many jobs are currently subject to market rate supplement.
Okay, we do have a few. We have some in highways. I believe there's 2 jobs in highways. There are a number in leisure. There are instructors, tutors that are sessional, so hard to compete with the environment sector. And then we have some in property design and maintenance. There were jobs, market rates applied in refuse, but those have been removed.
And are all those job groups covered by the current job evaluation scheme, or are they?
They are,
The
yes.
tutors and what have you as well?
The leisure roles, yes, they have been evaluated. There's one more job group, and that's in the fleet, and they are on Red Book rather than the Green Book at JC.
Thank you.
Any more questions, councillors?
Just a quick one. Is there anything that triggered the policy update apart from periodic review?
Yes, I would say that we are using the market rate supplement policy more than we have previously, and I think where we are economically and has triggered that.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to make sure it's reflective of the current practice and make sure it's really clear. This is a temporary payment, so employees and managers need to be clear of that before we're applying it. It's only to be used in exceptional circumstances. We need to be flexible in how we remove that if we need to remove it for it to remain justified.
Yeah, I know you speak. It's fine.
Yeah.
Speak up.
I'm just wondering whether equality impact is considered in every case. I mean, I can see you've done a quality impact assessment on the policy, but is it considered in every case? So if you're choosing to apply this, I don't know, in highways, do you consider equality impact for that job?
We're very live to the fact that where we've got a predominance of male or female job groups, that we need to be particularly mindful of the equality impact on that. So yes, we would do a gender breakdown, a review across the.
I'm quite like in item 3 of the policy, item 3.1, where you've got to have all 3 of the conditions. There is an inability to successfully recruit suitable staff to a particular post, and there, well, I'm putting it in, there is a difficulty in retaining staff in a particular post, and services are at risk of being disrupted. And it needs all 3, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. Just clarifying, really. Thank you. Any other comments or anything? Oh, thank you, Rebecca. Let's just go back to the recommendations at 2.1. That's to note the proposed main changes to the revised market rate supplement policy as set out in the supporting information section. And in particular now, 2.2, to approve that revised policy at Appendix 1, and to note that subject to this ratification, the revised policy, application forms and guidance will be published on the Council's intranet, and the communication rollout of the changes will be shared with colleagues. And everybody's aware and quite happy with that, in agreement? Yeah, thank you. I think that concludes the meeting. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you all for attending, and thank you for providing such concise information.